Thank you for joining us today to our series on Speaking to Hispanics, Thought Exchange. Today we're going to talk about the power of the infomercial, dive deep on what infomercials are, how they've changed, what they've meant to business, and how we can use them to sort of drive business going forward. But first, by way of introduction, Marianne Walker, who's the founder of Los Defensores and Walker Advertising. For those of us who don't know, Los Defensores launched 35 years ago and is the leading attorney advertising firm in the country. 35 years, long time.
Thank you.
And started with infomercials.
That's right, we did.
Which is why she's
That's
here.
what we did.
And then we also have with us Alvaro Ibarra, Associate Professor of Marketing at Loyola Marymount University. And his specialty and what he teaches is integrated marketing and communications, which is sort of the way infomercial as content are moving in the future. So he brings some unique perspective. PATRICIA TESTA, who's my partner, managing partner of D2H Partners, and myself, Marcelino MIYARES, also managing partner of D2H Partners. So that being said, we're going to talk about the power of the infomercial. We're a direct response agency. And we focus on direct response and performance targeted campaigns. And as we pitch our business, we find more and more that there are a lot of misperceptions about what infomercials are. You know, everybody thinks about the paid programming, the screaming, the call now, wait, there's more, buy this, get that, right? But the reality is that infomercials have changed a lot over the years. They've changed in duration, they've changed in content, they've changed in usage. And one of the reasons why we came up with this topic is because P&G, there was an article about P&G and the use of infomercials, but not in the ways that we would expect. They interpreted infomercials as a way of showing, illustrating, teaching consumers how to use their products. So they don't buy 30-minute shows, but in today's media world, they break up infomercial content, type content, depending on the message. So let's start with talking about what an infomercial can do. What did it do for you when you launched your business?
Well, the legal category was a new category back in the mid-'80s. And so explaining to the Latino consumer in Spanish and through 1-800-THE-LAW-2 in English how to utilize a lawyer and when you know that you need an attorney was way too much to explain in 30 seconds. So these half-hour shows was a beautiful way to explain it. So of course we had Jaime Jarrin and Jorge Jarrin and myself explaining you need an attorney under these circumstances. It doesn't matter what your legal status is. That was a big concern. Yes. It doesn't matter whose fault it is. You are entitled to speak to a lawyer. So it was a brilliant way to educate.
And over the years, how has it changed? So Los Defensores has grown.
Right.
How have you adapted?
In the beginning, we were utilizing it to educate, but then we realized that it was really too much time. So we started to do, I think you were with us at that time, we started to do call to actions every 3 minutes. So pick up the phone and call. And our phone number was underneath at all time and the website. Now all of us sit down and watch TV with our phones or our computers. So having that website up, which also has a call to action that's easy to access, and then we get a lawyer on immediately. For us, it was brilliant. We were very happy, and it was a nice compliment to all the other media that we had. Patricia and I were talking yesterday how the outdoor complements it so nicely. And of course the short form. So it's part of a bigger media plan, but a critical one.
So in the short form, you still use direct to or call to action techniques, don't you?
We certainly do. Oh, that's all we do.
Yes. So that's also a form of an infomercial.
Yeah.
An infomercial, people I think tend to get stuck on the 30-minute show as opposed to the 2-minute, the 1 minute, or particularly in the web. Everything is call to action on the web.
Sure. Yeah, 1-800-THE-LAW-2. You can call, text, or go online.
Right.
So you can get in lots of ways, and our operators are standing by to give you a lawyer immediately to answer your legal needs.
So we produce infomercials. We produce a lot of content for our clients. And we still, as sort of a matter of creative philosophy, think that infomercials do a lot of things at once, which makes them very effective. Obviously, they sell, and they can hard sell or soft sell, but sell. We sell hard. That's what we do. But they can also teach. They can allow you to dramatize situations. You mentioned that 30 seconds is not a lot of time. For certain products, not even 2 minutes. You need more time. And we're, as Latinos, we love storytelling. We love drama. We react to that. So it allows you to dramatize while you're teaching and selling. It also allows you to segment audiences. You know, if you break down infomercials, you think you're hearing the same product basic premise over and over, but you're hearing that premise as it relates to different uses of a product. So there are different approaches, different angles, which kind of goes against the 30 seconds. In the 30 seconds, you say one thing, you say it hard, you say it fast, and you say it often, right? In the infomercial, you can sort of unthread that a little bit. And then it entertains, right? So it does all of those things. So in that context, an infomercial, breaking it out to sort of an integrated marketing digital perspective, how can you use infomercials for all of that?
Well, what I teach my class, my students, is at first I try to get them to say, do you remember a commercial you see? And these millennials, these young target markets, it's hard for them to really identify which advertiser until we start getting to storytelling. And so, well, let's bring up examples of some ads or some marketers that you do remember. And the ones they bring up are the ones that where they were able to build a rapport or relationship, or that one that told that story. So the fast 30-second ads, they may not remember that because they're getting bombarded by so many different media types and different messages. But the infomercial allows them to spend a little more time, especially if something that's really targeted to what their needs are. If it's relevant, they're going to buy into it, they're going to spend more time, and then they'll go to that special landing page, they'll call that number, they'll click through rate. So that's what an infomercial does for them. And I found it kind of unique, interesting, that those format are the ones that they tended to remember more than the quick 30-second ones.
Yeah, I think kind of the role in a media picture is that we used to use, well, we still do a lot, the infomercial to generate the call, right? But I think what you're saying now is the infomercial is the place where the possible consumer could end up to learn more.
Right. Or, for example, the 2 to 4 minute infomercial, it's enough teach them enough where they maybe shoot them to somewhere where they could learn more, get more information. Click here, download something. When I worked for a company called Emerald, they're B2B. Our customers were the Northrops, the Raytheons of the world, government. And we were just all content marketing. And when we started using a form of video kind of infomercial, very segmented, because our clients were first response, military, and we tweaked it. And I started interviewing engineers, and we saw our open rate increase. We started more people going to our website, just telling that story.
When you're talking about a story, are you talking problem solution, or are you talking about telling a story without a problem and a solution? And
we would frame it in a way where, for that specific target market, this is what's your problem, or information about and how your product is the solution to it, almost like a mini case study.
Yes.
Okay. So that's what infomercial allows you to do, is that address the problem, and if you relate to it, then most likely you'll be able to call or click or go to a website.
What I find fascinating is that you're saying that young people can be consumers of infomercials, because now the thinking is that infomercials or even direct response television is only for the older consumer, not for the younger consumer.
Yeah. The thing I do with my students, I tell them the first day of the class, it's like, I'm here to remove your filters. They're like, well, what do you mean? It's because they don't know the type of messages that they're being, sold to or told to. And I said, okay, now I want you to pay attention to, let's look for a Honda commercial, or let's look for, and then the next day, oh, Professor Ibarra, I just saw this, I saw it here, I saw it here. They're bombarded, and their life, they live as just Instagram and Spotify, but they are receptive to the other forms of media. They just don't see it.
So how do you integrate an infomercial
Like a perfect example.
length in that world.
Right, like Marianne does. Perfect example. You know, she uses that video. She integrates it with the outdoor. With the first, you have the spokespersons. You know, Jaime and Jorge Haring forever.
Now known as influencers.
Yes,
right?
and that's exactly
Yeah.
right. That's what it is. Is you get those influencers, which Jaime and Jorge Haring are. They have that rapport. They have that value. They have that trust of the community, and then all the different media types. It integrates to the call to action where you lead them to. The infomercial allows you to spend more time telling a story, but then with your billboard, then that's integrated, that connects. Here's your TV ad, here's your radio ad, here's your whatever, and the digital ads.
So all the Kardashians are now DR advertisers? Is that what
They're
it turns out to
influencers.
be?
Yes,
Right.
well, look at the youngest one of
Yes.
them. What, the richest
Kylie.
girl
Right.
in the world? Woman in the world, is it?
Yes, most successful brand. I think she was the youngest billionaire.
Yeah.
But obviously they don't like to think of themselves as DR advertisers or DR drivers, but that's essentially what an influencer is.
Yeah, there's still a negative patina and how we define our industry. But I think what you're saying is that infomercial marketing today is really content marketing,
Yes.
right? So we can break it up, we can throw it in a blender, dice it up. It may not be at the top of the funnel, but it may be somewhere in the middle because you're asking them to go get some more information.
Right.
Or it may be at the end, the place where they finally click to buy or click to call or
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all pieces of a puzzle. We had so many mediums going that the only way we could tell if something was working is we'd remove it, see what happens. And yeah, we'd be missing a few hundred calls when we pulled the infomercials. So that's how we could see it.
And do you see a behavioral, and this is not the power of this, but do you see a behavioral difference since you have 1-800-THE-LAW and you have Los Defensores? Do you see a behavioral difference between a Hispanic consumer of your service versus an English language consumer of your service? How they approach your services?
So it used to be more evident. There was such demand for attorneys early on that's why Los Defensores did so well, because we were addressing a demand. Fortunately, when the state bar, the U.S. Supreme Court said that attorneys can all advertise, and then we went and really pioneered the way. Now there's so many competitors.
Of course,
I can't even name them all, but so the main difference used to be that the non-English speaking Latino market was in greater need of attorney representation than the general market. I would say that's still true.
Okay.
And it's probably true, something that works kind of in concert is also health issues. The Latinos have more health issues because, diet and other things.
And lack of access.
Yeah. So yeah.
But in terms of how they, for example,
So the customer, I think what you're saying, the customer journey,
Yeah, is it different?
is it different for the
I think
Hispanic
so.
and
I
Hispanic?
think Latinos were more loyal and were more appreciative. So when we would connect an attorney through Los Defensores, the client 95% of the time was perfectly happy, while in the general market, they were still shopping.
Right.
Yeah.
And for example, today.
Now, ultimately, we'd end up probably statistically with the same, but it was a different attitude.
A different attitude. Now, in terms of how they approach you, is it via phone or via a computer online?
Yeah, it's online, it's text, it's
But do you notice a
certainly
difference
telephone.
between
Yeah.
the Hispanic consumer and the general market?
Oh, more telephone.
That's
Yeah.
So you do more click to call or a drive to call as opposed to a drive to a click.
We're doing everything?
Yes.
But also the quality of a client when that client comes through the phone is much higher, because then
Better
there's a
lead.
much greater investment and connection.
Yeah, we find in our campaigns, like you said, you try everything. But even landing pages, digital ads, you want them to click the call, you want them to click to buy because it's efficient, but ultimately our campaigns are geared to drive a call, even online. And particularly because Latinos they're accessing online through their phone. So it's literally a click to call. You don't even need to pick up another device and remember any numbers or anything. So we're still, I think the Latino, the less acculturated Latino is still very call dependent for services and products. And that connection is, they want to talk to somebody. They don't want to be hard sold. It's a paradox. They don't want to be hard sold, but they want to talk to somebody. But if they make that call, they're kind of open to everything.
Yeah, now digital, of course, tremendous, like this podcast. I think to some extent podcasts are also maybe more used or equally used now.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. I don't think, to both of your points, that really DR is more content driven now. I don't think advertisers have fully grasped the power of a podcast or a blogcast. It's not being really exploited yet. Influencers, to some degree, but that's not really a podcast. That's really a pitcher pitching their service or their product or whatever. But you don't, and because among Hispanics, there's still an informational gap, and brands would be probably well advised to go and sort of to cut the divide and gain the loyalty of consumers.
That's right.
Because a well-informed consumer develops a relationship with the brand and takes it very personally.
So television, you raise an interesting question. Television for Latinos was not only a way of reaching them to sell something or buy something, but it was a way of learning. Advertising on TV and Spanish news in particular has always been a way for Latinos to learn what's going on
To
in
sort of
society,
acculturate.
in the market. Do you think that's still the case?
Yeah, good question. Personally, I love radio. Do you listen to live radio?
I do.
I love it. I like the DJs. I like the interaction.
And I think
like
radio
hearing
fits
the
in. I
public.
think broadcast. I think radio fits into that sort of not only shopping but learning from medium. But now we have digital. So I guess the question really is to both of you. Does television still play that big of a role? And then what other roles are there? Because ultimately that's where the infomercial comes in.
Resides, yeah.
Right? It lives in those now new different pods and places.
Well, again, it all goes back to what target market or consumer you're talking to. So if we're going with the first generation Latino, and I just have my parents, they live on their key broadcast networks, Spanish ones. And they're like, said they don't miss their show.
That's
and
right.
they're the doctor that on the TV said this. I was like, oh, what doctor?
That's what I'm talking about, the learning. They really believe it.
They're like, oh, and then they tell me, oh, did you make sure you're taking your medicine for the azúcar and so forth. So they have that connection with them. Younger generation, they're having that connection with TV. But now they're trying to get that connection also with other media types too, right? Reinforce what they're learning, because with access to with the smartphones and the computers, you have access to information. So now you have a lot more informed consumer. But when as a Latino, they still want to make that connection. So you're going to do your research. You may buy there if it's a low price item, $19.99, whatever. I know my product. I need to get a hard case for my phone. But if it's something more technical, then you're going to put in that call, because you're going to do your research and then you put in a call. And if you put in that call, somebody who speaks Spanish, you feel that kind of connection. Or you may be putting that call for your mom or dad who wants you to get more information for them. I do that all the time for my parents. So I'm doing the research and then I'm putting the call, and then they want to speak to somebody in Spanish just to confirm what they read, what's in English. that's what they're getting in, you know, the services.
So in that journey, the infomercial can play a role, right? Because it can help you be more informed by the time you make that call.
That's
Exactly.
right. No, a
Yeah.
critical part of the mix.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, let's say, I think we were discussing this yesterday, P&G is making a huge investment has always made a huge investment in advertising, but they're adopting much more of a performance-driven scheme in doing business. I don't know if you found that to be true or not.
Well, like nowadays, everything wants to be measurable, right? It's like performance marketing, they call it digital marketing. And if it's on Facebook, social media, native ads, but where the infomercial has its place, again, I see the like 2 to 4, 4-minute spots, is you're giving them some information and then you're driving them somewhere. And that video clip, if it's targeted, if it's resonating to them, it'll help them increase with the click-through rates. It'll allow them with the additional calls. So infomercials are performance-driven media type.
And it's also shareable,
Yeah.
which you couldn't do before with a 30-minute show on TV.
So
Now infomercials are shareable.
Yeah. So it's in line. It's in essence, it's evolved to what it is now. You know, infomercials does play a critical part of it.
Well, infomercials in sort of the new denomination, moving beyond the 30-minute or the 28:30 in regular media terms.
Right.
It's moved to basically anything that elicits a response. Is that what we're saying?
Anything that, and this is a good way to close, just anything that sells, entertains, informs, and is shareable,
Sure.
can be, all of that together can
Sure.
be,
And
can be
repetition,
defined-
repetition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we were on, I remember, I used to answer all the calls in our call center for Los Defensores, and part of the script was to ask, well, how did you hear about us? And I'll say this in Spanish.
Univisión.
Y me contesta el señor, ay señorita, si ustedes están hasta en la sopa.
for those of us who speak, it means you're everywhere, even in the soup.
Everywhere. Because the public does need information, and as long as you're responsible for your product or service to make sure that you're delivering the best possible product to your community, then get it out there. Let people know about it.
Absolutely.
So when the time is right, you're top of mind when they need it.
So is this VCast an infomercial?
It's informative infomercial.
We haven't heard so many things. Maybe not, but it's close enough. But thank you both for being here. To those that are watching this, we're going to put up everybody's contact information in the credits. So if you want to reach out, engage in dialogue.
Yeah, thank
We're
you.
here.
Yes, I'm the founder there of Walker Advertising, but sole majority 3 years ago and no longer have any day-to-day responsibility.
But you're still the face of Los Defensores now.
Well, no, I stopped doing commercials, I think, last year.
Oh, wow.
But
Just recently, I think I saw you still.
But obviously 33 years
Yeah.
under my watch of CEO. Love the whole advertising industry and how powerful it is at getting a message out to millions and millions and millions of people. I can't imagine doing anything other than advertising.
So we're all in it.
Yeah.
In it together. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was really informative. Thank you.